Alright, we have 4 this week, and we have 5 next week, so we're getting a little more eventful than we have been the past couple of months.
So we're making up for everything the last couple of months.
Even though at the end of the year last year it was like 6 a video, and that was insane, but hopefully we don't have to do that too much. But right now we're at 4, so let's get started.
Alrighty.
Naturally, when you have a breakout star from a massive TV show in popularity, generally you put that person into movies.
Yeah, of course.
And you've probably seen Aaron Paul, besides in Breaking Bad, with he was one of the rapists in the Last House on the Left remake, and he was Mary Elizabeth Winstead's husband in Smashed.
Yes.
And he's got a couple of more movies coming out this year, one from Sundance and Ridley Scott's Exodus at the end of the year. But until then, he's going to try his hand at a big budget action movie.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why we have Need for Speed. That might be this movie's sole purpose. Is to let's see if Aaron Paul can do the theatrically released big budget movie thing.
They've been wanting to do this turnover to an actual film from the video game for a long time too.
How old is this game?
I remember playing this game on the PS1.
I think I remember playing a demo of it once.
Yeah, I played that demo actually too.
Okay, but of course they've put a story with it that I'm gonna take a wild guess and say wasn't part of the video game.
I don't believe so.
The video game that I'm pretty sure we see them playing in one scene.
No, you do.
Okay.
For sure.
Of course. It's like the fucking scene about last night when they're watching About Last Night.
Yep.
The story is, okay. I'm a little fuzzy because I'm not quite sure. I wasn't quite sure for a long time how these characters were related to each other.
Yeah?
Okay, so you have Toby, who is Aaron Paul, and I guess his dad owned a garage and was I guess he also raced.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're supposed to assume. We get this narration from Michael Keaton. We'll get to more to him in a minute. He's a weird character. And then we have Pete, who I guess is, at first I thought it was his brother, but I guess it's just his little buddy.
Yeah.
And the way they're acting, I guess Anita is his ex.
That's what it seemed like.
And Anita is Pete's older sister.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have a villain who is Dino, who is Dominic Cooper. And his girlfriend, who is Imogen Poots, who is trying so hard to break out. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. She's got a lot of options this year.
So, Dino, of course, is our villain, and so he enters the scene and we immediately know he's a douchebag, because normally Dominic Cooper does play douchebags.
Yes.
So, he comes in, and they decide that they're going to race.
Mm-hmm.
So, he takes... Pete basically follows Toby around wherever he goes.
Yes.
So, they go out to Dino's... somebody. One of his really, really rich relatives.
Yes.
And it's supposed to be Toby versus Dino in this race, but shock surprise, there just happens to be 3 cars. So, Pete wants to join in. They race. Dino crashes Pete. Pete blows up and dies.
An awesome sequence, by the way.
And Dino drives off and leaves them there, and Toby is the one that gets arrested for it.
Yep.
And he goes to prison for a couple of years,
Yeah.
I think. And then he gets out, and he decides, I'm going to race in this big race that everybody's building up, and to get my revenge on Dino, basically.
Yes.
And Dino has since basically seduced Anita at her brother's funeral, and now they're engaged, and he enlists the help of his old girlfriend, who is Imogen Poots, to help him out. That's a pretty elaborate setup for a movie so simple.
Yeah, it really is.
This movie is pretty much everything you expect it to be. It is basically a Fast and Furious movie with not as elaborate stunts, but just as much racing. To the movie's credit, most of it is real.
Yeah.
Like real cars. Like Aaron Ball was actually talking about that on Kimmel, how pretty much no CG was used, except for like. I mean, they're all real cars, but there's obvious special effects here and there.
Of course.
And it's okay. There's a lot wrong with it, but at the same time, it's one of those movies where, it's...
You get what you pay for.
Yeah, it's a racing movie. You get what you expect for sure.
Yeah.
But, there are some things that are kind of, a little out there.
Mm-hmm.
Like the, well, as we were talking about, it's obviously one of those movies that's really, really cliche and predictable and has a lot of, conveniences and stuff like that. Your predictable, wacky side characters that are the comedy relief, basically. Even though I thought the funniest person in the movie was Imogen Poots, which is really weird.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't expect that out of her. I mean, not to say that I don't expect good things out of her, just I didn't expect her character, of all people, to kind of be the most effective comedy relief.
Mm.
I imagine a lot of people will hate this movie.
Yeah, I can see that.
But I don't think it's going to be as bad as people make it out to be. Everybody's like, a long time ago, people were talking about how it was going to be a financial fail, too. And that's kind of a bummer, because what it basically is without Vin Diesel or Paul Walker's face, or Dwayne Johnson now's face on a movie like this, movies like this generally don't really do that well.
No.
But the problem is since this was Aaron Paul's first big thing after Breaking Bad ended, pretty much everybody's just going to point the finger at him and say, he can only do TV, he can't, help a movie along.
That's what happened to Taylor Kitsch.
Yeah, well, obviously Aaron Paul is a great actor, especially if you've watched Breaking Bad, you obviously know that. This guy, I don't think Aaron Paul is capable of hitting a false note in acting, even in a movie like this. But they're gonna try to make it all fall on him, basically, is what I imagine.
I guarantee it, he's the lead.
Yeah. But it's just in general, I don't think movies like this work unless they're an actual brand named Fast and Furious movie.
Well, it has a brand, and it does have a following, but I think this following stopped many, many, many years ago.
Until this movie started being advertised, I forgot this game existed.
It's got numerous sequels, and I believe the game's still being made to this day, but I mean, I could be wrong about that.
Yeah, you get the EA logo on top of however many there were. DreamWorks was in there. There are so many companies.
It's Touchstone, so it's connected to Disney.
Touchstone was the other one. And yeah, okay, talking about the race scene, since that's what everybody's probably going to go there for. They're good, but they could have benefited from a lot of changes. Like, there is a lot, like Tarantino tried to show us when he made Death Proof. Car chases are most effective when you're outside of the car.
Yeah.
And you're seeing everything, preferably in long takes and not a lot of editing. A lot of the races in Need for Speed take place inside the car.
But that's a camera view from the video game, too.
Yeah, the first person. They love showing you that first person shot. Which I think takes away from how awesome the scenes could be.
I can see that.
But, I don't know, maybe some people feel differently.
It was more of a nod to the video game than it was anything else.
But yeah, this is one of those movies where you really have to, check your, realism.
Oh, yeah.
Whatever at the door. Like, this is one of those movies where, cars weigh 90 pounds. And as soon as they start flipping, they spontaneously explode. You can take a wrench and hit a lock with it, and the lock just breaks just like that. Just with one hit of a wrench. And there's absolutely no cops around unless it's convenient to the plot.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the entire first half of the movie, they're just racing on these public streets everywhere, and shit is going down. Even the race that ends up killing Pete. The amazing Pete. I'll get to that in a second. There are no cops to be found anywhere. And then at the end of this movie, there are fucking cops everywhere. It's like they were in hiding or something.
Reminds me of The Chase.
Yeah, I was getting a Chase vibe, too. There's even a scene where he actually has her driving while sitting on his lap.
The thing missing was the makeout as the sun was going down. It's the only thing that was missing from this.
There's an incredible... I know it's kind of redundant to say there's a ridiculous scene in this movie, but there's one... There's one scene that kind of even goes past the ridiculousness that's required to make a movie like this. You probably wonder how, they even brought this question up in The Chase. When you're just driving the continued plot to that is, in order to get to this big race where he's going to face off against Dominic Cooper, he's got to drive from New York to California in 45 hours.
Mm-hmm.
So he's just going to speed his way there. That's the big plan. His buddy in the helicopters even kept talking about, he mentioned once that it was like a scene from Speed. You wonder how he's going to do with gas. I don't
Some
know
people
how
will like this scene.
I don't know how this would work.
Yeah.
But, let's just say there is a solution to how they get gas, besides stopping at a gas station.
That happens too, but that's a little bit more dangerous, especially when things go down later on.
Speaking of Paul Walker, that kind of felt like the scene out of a Joyride when they had to stop for gas and were like really paranoid.
Yep.
Yeah, and his friend. I think that is really famous musician guy. Oh my god, his name just escaped me.
Exhibit?
The guy that played his friend that like could find helicopters everywhere. Okay, anyway, sorry, fans of his, but his name just flew right out of my head. But anyway, this guy is a pilot apparently, and can fly literally anything he gets his hands on, whether it be just one of those small planes, whether it be a news helicopter that he gets from out of nowhere, or one of those gigantic, belongs to the army helicopters.
Yes.
He just finds these everywhere and just shows up with them. And doesn't even get arrested until the end for it. And it's played for comedy, so whatever. But no, besides that, obviously, it's okay, because most of those... Because these movies basically require, illogical things to happen, because it's just one of those movies that's just, fun as an action movie.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't really need to be, like, overly smart or anything. I mean, it helps for, like, to build suspense or something, but in the right case, but for the most part, it just kind of is what it is. Like, it just kind of is what you expect it to be. It doesn't really rise above it or anything.
Oh, yeah, it's Kid Cudi.
Yes.
That's Scott Mescudi. The name that's actually on the Mylar, that's him.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
That one, I know that one song of his from, like, Project X.
Day and Night.
But anyway.
That's the song everyone knows from him.
Okay, I guess we can discuss Michael Keaton for a second.
Yeah, please do.
Michael Keaton's another one of the characters where I have no idea what the fuck he is. He somehow knows almost everybody in the movie.
Yeah.
And he never leaves the one room that he's in. We don't know where he is. Obviously, we can't know where he is or he'd be arrested, because he basically sets up the race somehow. I have no idea how this works.
We don't know how he has his powers.
But no, it's like the director just put Michael Keaton in a room for one day and put a bunch of cameras in the room and just said, "Be Michael Keaton, and here's some lines."
Be Michael Keaton as Beetlejuice.
And that's what he does.
Yeah.
He's basically like he works as a commentator, and he's also, I don't know if he can see the race from where he is, or if he only watches it on monitors. I have no idea who this guy is.
He has cameras everywhere, if I had to guess.
And lastly, as I was talking about, this movie has one of the most important movie characters in cinema history.
Yes.
The character I have dubbed Pete Christ. Because, obviously Pete is racing with them and he dies.
Mm.
And then everything that happens in the rest of the movie is in Pete's honor. Everybody in the world knows who Pete is and his tragic story.
And he also had a prophecy before he died
Yeah.
that things are going to happen the way that they end up happening.
Yeah, Pete can apparently see the future.
Yes, he can see the future.
Okay. And yeah, Toby gets the tattoo on his arm that says Pete. Somehow Michael Keaton is doing this race in Pete's honor.
Yep.
And he calls him Pete by his first name like he was a personal friend. I don't know. Especially considering apparently... Actually, I was going to say Keaton must be in California, but...
It doesn't really...
There's no proof of that.
You can't tell where he is, because even the background, you can't see anything. You can't see palm trees, you can't see anything.
And he's got pictures from, like, Toby's past, too, like, of him and his dad. I don't know. The opening credit sequence reminded me of Gone in 60 Seconds.
Yeah.
It's like just a lot of that whole, and actually the whole movie reminds me of Gone in 60 Seconds. But, except that I hate that movie and this one's okay. I know Gone in 60 Seconds has its fans, but I'm sorry, I just never liked it.
Nope.
So, that's pretty much what that movie is. A couple of things to Aaron Paul's fans. He never says yo and he never says bitch, in case you were wondering. I would almost guarantee they at least asked him.
I'm
and
certain.
And he said, you know what, probably not, because then that'll, carry over, and, they'll expect me to be saying it in Exodus. And
He didn't even do it on Raw, and he was out with Dolph Ziggler, so that would have made perfect sense, and he didn't do it.
And, no, despite popular belief, the movie does not begin with him with a beard and in an El Camino, so, he is clean-shaven and in a totally different car.
Although the first cop that I saw, I was swearing they were going to beg Bryan Cranston to play that guy.
Alright, so, he does race a guy at the end named Mike, so there's that at least.
It's really nice, though, because Dino's, he's trying to do everything he can to make sure that Toby doesn't make the race, including putting a bounty on his head.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, you could have my Lamborghini if you win this. So, in Arizona, is what it looked like to me, there was these group of guys that just tried to run him off the road, and just insanity. And that's where the helicopter comes in. And
So,
it was fun.
Yeah, I'm sure if you go to this movie, because you like movies like it, you're gonna be fine.
Oh, absolutely.
And even if you go to it just because, you've already seen 300 and there's nothing else to see,
Yeah.
you're not gonna have a bad time or anything.
Not at all.
So, yeah, it's fine. It's alright.
It's a mild recommendation.
Alright, you know what's not alright, though?
Yep.
The fact that Tyler Perry has another movie out right now.
This is his last one for Lionsgate. At least for the present time.
Okay, so the next movie is Tyler Perry's The Single Moms Club. And it's written like all of his other titles. It's The Single Moms Club in big, fancy typing, and then you just have, Times New Roman at the top. It says Tyler Perry's.
Stolen from Sex and the City.
So, yeah, he's in it, which I didn't know until it started.
You would have seen the trailer, you would have known it because it's in the trailer.
And once again, he's still not taken a group producer credit. It's got to say written, produced, and directed by Tyler Perry, even though it has all the... I complain about that every time he makes a movie, but I just can't get over it.
Dude does the craft services and everything.
It's a serious... it just gets in my brain and aggravates me. Okay, what this movie is... We have 5 women. We have Nia Long, we have Amy Smart, and we have 3 women I don't know. And they all are single moms who have their own problems. And then they all come together for this parent-teacher conference because all 5 of their kids were getting in trouble at the same time, conveniently.
Yes.
And through a chain of events, the women become best friends. Despite the fact that pretty much none of them... Amy Smart and the one woman are best friends already.
Yes.
And then they somehow just form this bond, over a very, very short afternoon at Amy Smart's house. It's in real time, too. It's like a 5-minute scene on Amy Smart's porch. And we see them arrive and we see them leave. So we know this whole meeting lasted for about 5 minutes. So, and of course, naturally, even though it's, celebrating women and how women can be powerful without men, they can, survive on their own, even if they have a bunch of obstacles they can overcome. Every single one of these women has a love story.
Yep.
So, we're not really celebrating that at all. We have, so, Amy Smart has the hots for her cliche, hard-working gardener neighbor who's always outside with his shirt off doing yard work.
And dying to be Gerard Butler.
And all the women are trying to convince her that she needs to get laid by this guy, even though her divorce isn't final yet. She says that, but, they say, fuck that.
Get back on that horse, and by the horse I mean your neighbor.
Yeah, is the exact line.
Yep.
We have Nia Long, who is divorced from a drug addict, and she's trying so hard to take care of her son, and naturally she falls in love with Tyler Perry.
Yep.
in a very self-serving role. So self-serving of a role, there is actually a point in time where one of the women meets Tyler Perry's character and talks about how fine he looks. Gee, Tyler Perry did not write this script at all.
Written by Tyler Perry.
So, women find Tyler Perry attractive, written by Tyler Perry. You have Jan, who is the stuck-up one, who basically works with like a publisher.
Yes.
And shock surprise, Nia Long, by coincidence, is trying to get a book published, but Jan shut her down basically because Jan's a racist. Do you know why? Because she's a white woman in a Tyler Perry movie.
Yep.
But I'll go into that in a second. Our next woman is the I'm Not Sofia Vergara. I can't remember her name.
Esperanza.
Yes.
I have the cast list in front of me.
She already has a dude when the movie starts, but the trouble is she has to hide him from her ex-husband because her ex-husband owns the house that she and her kids live in. And
it's Teddy Cibrian, too.
And the husband is going to kick her out of the house if he thinks she has a guy. Do you know why? Because he's a douchebag and because he's a white guy in a Tyler Perry movie.
And he's also paying for everything, too. That's another thing that's brought up several times.
You know how I know he's evil? Because he's got a goatee. And lastly, we have I'm Not Loretta Devine.
She's busy doing Doc McStuffins right now.
And basically, she is the strong black woman. She is a waitress who has like 3 kids and basically hates the world.
She is the comic relief of this movie, or she tries to be.
And her love interest, shock surprise, again, we get an embarrassing performance from Terry Crews, who has a sideways hat and a chain, because he's black, I guess.
Yeah, not looking like Devon in this one.
Basically doing a more if you can believe this, a more over-the-top version of his character in White Chicks.
Yes.
And she can't stand him. He's like constantly saying how much he loves her, how much he wants a chance, and how much he's just always in the restaurant trying to pick her up, and she can't stand the sight of him. Of course they're not going to fall in love later. She's not going to just fall head over heels suddenly with him. But anyway.
Of course not.
And that's basically what this movie is. Now, we're talking about this, okay, the title comes from the fact that they're all 5 sitting around in this 5-minute scene where they all get to know each other.
Yes.
And become best friends, just like that. And Amy Smart says, hey, we should start a single moms club. And what the single moms club is they all have like a shitload of kids. They probably have like maybe 11 kids in between them.
That sounds about right.
So what the single moms club does is one of the women takes all the children for one night, and the other 4 go and have a good time at a club or a karaoke bar or whatever, depending on if you're white or black. If you're black, you want to go to clubs. If you're white, you want to go to karaoke bars. Is what the movie tells us. So, and they're going to rotate.
Yep.
That's how it works. So it's fair. Despite the title of the movie, they spend about an hour and 20 minutes talking about the Single Moms Club. And then in the last half hour, we get to see what happens when they do the Single Moms Club. In montage form.
Of course.
What we see in this 5-minute montage of them doing the Single Moms Club, like one of them taking the kids, the other 4 going off, is probably what a lot of people expect the whole movie to be.
Yep.
They expect it to be this fun movie where we get to see them, you know, go out and do whatever. I'm just assuming. I don't know this movie's target audience.
It's the First Wives Club, but younger.
That movie was much better than this.
Oh, I totally agree with that, but still.
So, and that's what this movie is. So, I think I made this clear already, but I just want to talk about this again. I talk about this a lot with Tyler Perry, so I'm going to do this really quickly because I don't want to make it an issue.
Every time.
Let me start off here. Okay, I am not saying that Tyler Perry is racist. To say that Tyler Perry is racist would be to say that Tyler Perry absolutely hates white people. Which I don't think he does. What I do think Tyler Perry does is he is so lazy, he can't help himself from just writing completely in stereotypes.
Mm-hmm.
Just because it's apparently just so hard for him to keep writing. He's basically trying to be Woody Allen. He's trying to do 1 or 2 movies every single year. Only problem is Woody Allen generally kind of has the same thing always going on with the love octagon or whatever.
Yeah.
Tyler Perry just has to just narrow everything down to every little cliche plot point and stereotypical character, and somehow drags it out to 2 hours every time. And that's why his movies are such disasters, and why Woody Allen is hit and miss. A lot of people think Woody Allen's more hit than miss, even.
Agreed.
But here's the thing. I noticed this in so many of them, I just... Like I said, okay. Here are your 5 characters. You have Amy Smart and you have Jan. They're the white women.
That's Wendy McClendon Covey. She was Clementine on Reno 911.
And you have Esperanza or whatever her name was.
Yeah,
obviously she's in the middle because she's not white or black. She's like...
This is all you, sir.
She's in the middle.
She's Colombian, according to the list, but okay. I'm going to guess that's probably her character,
I'm
too.
not good with nationalities, sorry. And then you have your 2 black women who are, what's her name? And Nia Long.
Coco Brown.
Well, here's how they handle it.
She was in Lakeview Terrace.
Here's how they handle it. Yeah, I think I remember her. Yeah. Okay, so, Nia Long is a very hard-working single mom. She's trying to write her book, she's trying to raise her son, and she's basically got no other leg to stand on. She's got to do this all by herself. And of course, her son is going through a rebellious stage. And you have the other woman, who lives in a bad neighborhood, is a waitress, does everything by herself, has lived, has seen some shit, has lived the really hard life. Okay? Then you have Jan and Amy Smart, the white women. Jan is a stuck-up racist, and Amy Smart is extremely incompetent because she has hired a maid to raise her daughter. A maid who is also not white. So when she has to fire her maid because she can't afford her, Amy Smart is a very incompetent mess.
Yeah. And
basically can't do anything. Do you see where I'm saying if the roles were reversed here, we'd have a problem?
Yeah.
And this is common in Tyler Perry movies. Like I said, I'm not saying he's racist, I'm just saying his characters are very, very one-dimensional.
Paper thin.
Because that's all he really knows how to write, it seems. And the problem with that is they're and because these characters are so one note like that, we're supposed to think, well, not we, but I think women who see the movie are supposed to find these women extremely relatable.
Yeah. And
their problems, just like their problems, and this is kind of a feel good, but also gives them the drama of what they're going through. I don't know how you could ever see these characters as relatable. Because they just are what they are, and that's it. I mean, they try to give Jan humanity every now and then, but then she always falls back on it. Like, the reason we learn, actually, this is like a quote, by the way, the reason she rejects Nia Long's book at first is because the book is too black.
I'm not going to say that, and I'm not going to say I said that again.
And then during the parent-teacher conference, Jan is always looking down at the other 2 women. Because that's just what she does. And then, once again, when they have the big meeting, when they're basically building the Single Moms Club, Jan acts the same way. I don't know. That's the race issue that Tyler Perry brings on once again. So, yeah, I know there's a lot of movies that have the roles reversed and are very stereotypical in the other way, but still, why don't we just put an end to it altogether? And make the characters, like real people that are relatable and sympathetic and all that. It's much more believable that they build a club together if they were that way.
Yeah.
But as is, I don't know what the fuck. So, basically, it's one of those ones where it starts, basically as soon, this is every Tyler Perry. If you want a really short review of the Single Moms Club, it's a Tyler Perry movie. I think you got it from there.
It's a non-Medea Tyler Perry movie.
Yeah. Basically, as soon as the movie starts and you meet the characters, you pretty much know where the movie's going from beginning to end.
Oh, yeah.
Just, you can just lay it all out, I'm sure. There'll be conflict, there'll be this, there'll be drama, there'll be, drama with the kids of some way. By the way, we never ever really see these kids. We hear their problems talked about. Like, they start to get screen time at the end, and they're fucking unbearable. Yeah. The ending of this, the last 10 or 15 minutes of this movie, obviously this movie is too long for starters. And here's the problem: is they keep building this whatever this is up. It's like the fucking Jubilee was in A Medea Christmas.
Yeah.
It's this big event that's happening, and they keep talking about it, but we don't really know what. It's some dance or something.
It's a fundraiser.
And they're building like a rainforest setting. That's why they need the men. That's why they bring in. That's why she meets up with Tyler Perry, and that's why Amy Smart talks to her neighbor, because they as men need to help them build the little enchanted forest, and that's about it. They just happen to fall in love with them for some reason, because they serve their purpose, I guess. But anyway, and that's the problem. Is this movie keeps looking like it's gonna end. But the trouble is they've talked about this Enchanted Forest fundraiser so much. You know the movie's not going to end until we fucking see this thing.
Of course not.
So, every time you're, like, winding down, you're like, okay, finally, this torture is ending. It's like, oh, shit. We still have to see that fucking fundraiser. And also in this 15 minutes, basically, it becomes so cheesy and... I don't even know the other word I'm looking for, but let me put it this way. A Full House episode looks gritty when compared to the last 15 minutes of this movie.
Nice.
Which is, you can only imagine. And we finally get to this Enchanted Forest fundraiser. And we basically tie up all the loose ends of the plot here.
Like 2 seconds.
Okay, not only... Spoiler alert. Nia Long gets her book published. Not only does Jan say, we're going to publish your book, she just happens to have a published hard copy of it.
Yeah, exactly. This is our prototype.
Like, a hardback copy of this book in her purse. Okay, and this has only got to be a few days later, because they were building this Enchanted Forest throughout the whole movie. Did they build the Enchanted Forest and then, like, 6 months later have the event? But, you know what? Whatever. And yes, because it's what women do, there is an obligatory scene where one of them is reading 50 Shades of Grey.
Yeah.
Because Tyler Perry knows women. And that's what women are. So, this is... Everything is contrived and convenient and comes to this really quick conclusion. Despite the fact that they've been dragging it out for an hour and a half, in the last 15 minutes they decide they're going to hurry shit up.
Yep.
So, that's a Tyler Perry movie for you. More or less. So, yeah. Just another lazy outing. That he just... Is this one of the ones based on one of his plays, or is this just its own thing?
I would say it's probably based on the play, if I had to guess. It kind of plays like it would be. Or a fractured version of what it should be.
Now, he says he's going to take a break from making movies to focus on his TV shows.
Yep.
I don't know. I think he's still got another one scheduled for this year, doesn't he?
I think maybe one... No, I think this is the last one of the Lionsgate deal. I'm pretty sure.
Regardless, I think he's made enough money now where he can start distributing his own movies, so even with the Lionsgate contract up, I think he's still going to manage to do it somehow. He will just, he may stop for a minute to work on his TV shows, but then he'll get this itch. He'll say, I haven't tortured the public enough recently.
Yeah.
I just have to just slop something down on paper and throw it onto a movie screen, just because I'm itching for it. So, maybe I'm thinking of Gone Girl.
Yeah, that's the only thing I'm thinking of, yeah.
Yeah. Tyler Perry's actually in David Fincher's new movie, if you didn't know that. So, we'll see how that plays out. We already saw what it's like for him to play Alex Cross.
Yeah, that didn't work out too well.
So, I guess I'm done with Tyler Perry for today.
For now.
Hopefully for a while. Hopefully we're done with TP Studios for a while.
Yeah.
Okay, our next movie is getting a limited release today, and it premiered at TIFF last year. This movie is called The Art of the Steal, which stars Kurt Russell. It's Kurt Russell and Matt Dillon as half-brothers, and they are basically art criminals.
Sounds interesting.
And they do this job with their forger, their French forger, who is, I'm gonna butcher his name now. He played Mo in the Farrelly Brothers' The Three Stooges movie. Chris Diamantopoulos or something like that.
I'm the only one that seems to be able to pronounce his name, and I can't remember off the top of my head.
Okay, and they do this job, but then the job goes awry and Matt Dillon gets caught. But since Matt Dillon has a record, so if he goes away, he's going away for a very long time. Kurt Russell has a clean record. If he goes away, it's only going to be for a few years. So Matt Dillon sells him out, and Kurt Russell's the one that goes to prison for it. So a few years later, Kurt Russell gets out of prison, and they decide they're going to do another job. So they get together with they have Kurt Russell's little apprentice, or whatever he is. I'm not really sure how they relate, but they have, it's Jay Baruchel. They have an informer in Interpol who is Terrence Stamp, who is great in this movie. And they have an older guy, I can't remember his name off the top of my head. Shit. Regardless, they all come together again, and they're going to pull off one more job. Like you normally do. So, basically, it's a Guy Ritchie movie, is what I'm trying to say. A very Guy Ritchie wannabe movie. Don't get the wrong idea. This guy, I don't even remember the director's name, but he is not Guy Ritchie, I promise you. But once again, it's not a bad movie. It basically tries to do the clever caper thing that Ritchie did with Lock, Stock, and Snatch. But it never reaches those levels. But it's in the same style, if that's what you're into. And it actually does work as it's mostly a comedy above everything, and it is consistently funny. Like every now and then, it kind of trips over itself. But you've got Jay Baruchel in there doing his Jay Baruchel thing that is pretty much all he knows how to do. Mm-hmm. There is one really funny scene involving Jay Baruchel has to cross the border with a fake Amish beard. And that scene doesn't go as planned. He talks about he's actually an extra in Witness the Musical. And he gets into a whole thing with the border guard. That's a humorous scene. So basically, I don't know. This is one of those movies that's kind of hard to judge because it just is what it is. The Matt Dillon character is interesting because I've always liked Matt Dillon as an actor, and he basically plays this. Nobody plays sleazy like Matt Dillon does. Exhibit A, there's something about Mary.
Oh yeah.
And he plays this guy that is so greedy. There's actually there's a particular segment in the movie where he and Kurt Russell are walking down the street, and it's like this big crowded place with like a bunch of restaurants, and he bumps into a guy and he says, oh, excuse me, sorry. And then he pulls the guy's wallet out of his jacket. So he just pickpockets people just because. And then there's even so much so that there is a scene where he actually runs into a little girl. And he pats the girl on the head and he's like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see you there. And he keeps on walking. And he pulls out the little pocketbook that this little girl had on her.
Nice.
He is that fucking great. And there is also the French forger is a really good character. Even despite the fact that he's not played by a French actor, he still pulls it off really well. You're gonna love this. There is one character who is an informer played by Devin Bostick, who is Roderick from the Dire Wimpy Kid movies.
Yeah, it is.
He has one scene and he's in full Roderick mode, basically.
Sweet.
I want to keep talking about Terrence Stamp, though. Terrence Stamp has been around forever and has been gracing us with his presence. He's such an underrated actor. He's been nominated for an Oscar like once, and that was like in the 60s. But he has such a presence, and he's great in everything he does, and this is the best role he's had for a while. It's comedic and it's underplayed, but it's also just completely brilliant, just the way he plays it. Zod, by the way. That's probably how you know him.
He's Siegfried. That's how I know him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there are, for the most part, it's kind of a bland production. Like, there's not really anything too stylish about it that hasn't been lifted from another movie. But there is one segment, which is obvious. It's one of those segments where it's like, it seems useless now, but it's going to be important later.
Mm.
Where they do this whole, the French forger tells this story of how the Mona Lisa was stolen. And they do it as this, like, silent movie segment, where he tells the story of, like, the artist who was a forger and the guy that bought it from him and the guy that screwed him over. And it's the actors in the movie playing the parts within this little silent film that tells us the story of the theft of the Mona Lisa. Like, the guy that screwed everybody over was Matt Dillon with, like, a mustache, and you have Kurt Russell as dressed like a poor artist, and
Nice.
that's a really good segment. And the movie has a really good payoff at the end. Obviously, I won't, say what that is, but it's one of those things where you can tell it's leading to something, and the plot may not be exactly what you think it is completely. Normally movies like this, that kind of fails, where it's like they get proud of themselves and they reveal their big plot in a stylish manner, and you're just like, oh, okay, that's whatever. But this one actually has a decent payoff, which is a nice change of pace. So, yeah, that's pretty much. People will probably also love the other character, who is basically kind of like their mentor that also takes part in it with them. Like, he's explaining. He's basically like, if they had gotten Billy Connolly to be in this movie, this is who it would have been. And he talks about how, like, they're explaining how Matt Dillon and Kurt Russell are half brothers, and they explain they had two different mothers. It was just his dad was, in quotes, the Johnny Appleseed of sperm. He's basically the guy that, even though he's like the oldest of the group, he's the guy that basically sleeps with women if he has to help the plan.
Takes one for the team.
Yeah, he's like the handsome Rob of this group.
That's what came to mind immediately.
Would you like my virginity as well? If it's on the menu.
Who, of course, was also in Snatch.
Yes.
That's where most people know
And
him
Lock,
from.
Stock.
And Lockstock.
So, he's one of Guy Ritchie's go-to guys. So, yeah, it's alright. There's also a joke involving a, there is an artwork that is, basically a functional vagina that is a plot point in this movie. And I'll let you figure that out for yourself. That has a really, Terrence Stamp has a really great line where, the guy, he's with the other Interpol agent who's basically this bumbling idiot. And he's talking about women, and Terrence Stamp says the line, you wouldn't know a vagina if it was 4 feet tall and staring you right in the face. And then sure enough, there's this piece of artwork there that's there just to it's for an important plot point. And the guy's just kind of looking at it like it's a piece of art. He's like, what is that? And Terrence Stamp says, something that's 4 foot tall and staring you right in the face. So, yeah, the movie definitely has its moments, but it's still rather generic and kind of safe within the genre it is. So, it's getting dark in here. So, that's basically what that is. It's alright. If I don't heavily recommend it, but I mean, it's harmless. I'm sure you'll be fine if you catch it. Our last movie is also a limited release from today, which is Better Living Through Chemistry. Which I don't really know how, it's a comedy. It sets itself up as a black comedy, but it's not it doesn't really reach that exactly. I don't know if I'm giving too much away by saying that. It sets itself up as a black comedy, we'll say that. Sam Rockwell plays a pharmacist who has just inherited his father-in-law's shop. His father-in-law's still there, he's just retired. And he's basically there to oversee everything. And he's your stereotypical father-in-law that's really condescending and, everything's an iron fist and shit. So much so that he absolutely insists that the name of the shop stay his last name instead of Rockwell's. So, and Rockwell's wife is Michelle Monaghan, who is this fitness freak who is extremely competitive. So much so that they pretty much don't even talk to each other now. Well, and Rockwell is basically one of those characters that's walked all over by everybody. He's so timid. And he's got obviously a rebellious teenage son. He kind of reminds me of the first half of the movie. He kind of reminds me of a character Rick Moranis would have played in the early '90s. He's basically Wayne Zelensky without the inventions, I guess.
Interesting.
He's just very timid, and everybody just walks all over him, and he just kind of takes it. But one day he gets a delivery, and he takes it out to a lonely housewife played by Olivia Wilde. And of course Olivia Wilde looks like Olivia Wilde, so naturally she is seductive and hates her husband, and is lonely. Her husband is Ray Liotta, who doesn't show up until the last 20 minutes. But anyway, because his name's in the credits, and they just kind of build it up that way. This starts an affair between Rockwell and Olivia Wilde that basically starts to get out of control when he starts opening, this is where the title comes in. Basically, what they start to do is he starts taking his own supplies from his pharmacy and basically makes his own pills that basically make him love life more and make him more adventurous. They go through the whole list of things that he does better now, and of course one of those things is obvious. But then of course the DEA starts to get involved because obviously it becomes apparent that pills from his pharmacy are disappearing. And then finally the plot kind of comes to a point when Olivia Wilde gets the idea of running away with him. He can leave his wife, she can leave Ray Liotta by killing him and inheriting his money and taking off with it. And it's one of those things where she mentions it as a joke, and then he just kind of plays off, but then as the movie progresses, she may or may not be getting more serious about it. Because Rockwell's in charge of his pills, obviously, he can make that happen if he desires. This movie kind of reminded me, nobody probably saw this. There was a movie from a couple of years ago called The Details. It was a black comedy with Tobey Maguire and Elizabeth Banks. It kind of reminded me of that, but that could just be my subconscious because Ray Liotta also played the husband whose wife was cheating on him in that movie. But it kind of gave me that vibe. This is basically a better version of The Details, I guess, and a less dark one. Because The Details went to some pretty dark places. One thing I want to talk about real quickly is Olivia Wilde. Olivia Wilde is really starting to show her talent lately. And it's one of those... I don't know if Olivia Wilde has always been talented, or if I was just so distracted for so long by, how she looks, I just didn't realize it. But with this and Drinking Buddies, among other things, she's really starting to show that she's really got in the acting department what it actually takes. Because I remember thinking she was good on House, but I never really went through my head that she could be great. Mm-hmm. But I think if she keeps getting the right parts, she can really take off and be more than just her incredible appearance. She can be known for more than just that, and being Mrs. Sudeikis. It's worth noting that this movie also has a big name in its cast. And she's pictured on the poster, and I don't know why. The narrator for this movie is Jane Fonda. And she does have a scene... She's in the very, very last scene. And it's basically a punchline. Because we're seeing the movie from her perspective. But when we finally see her at the very end, she's just like an unimportant character. She's just there for like one joke, and then the movie ends. But yeah, and I did like this movie, by the way. I should probably say that. It's really funny consistently, and I will say it's interesting to think about where it's gonna go because you're not quite sure for a while. The last 20 minutes or so, though, kind of start to veer off the road because I don't know why they started doing this, but pretty much the entire last 20 minutes of this movie are a bunch of fake outs. Like one of those moments where you think something extreme has happened and then, oh, it's just this. That happens like 10 times right in a row at the very end, and you always see it coming, too. Like, the second you see something and they think it's something extreme, you can tell it's probably not. And they keep using that over and over and over again just in the last 20 minutes, and it just threw me off. Because the movie's really good up until then, and then it just... And it's still fine. It doesn't, like, ruin the movie or anything, but it's really... I don't know why they kept doing that. Kept using that. Yeah, there are a lot of Sam Rockwell fans. The few of you, I guess. He's getting more and more... Even though his movies are kind of getting lower and lower, his people still know and love him. Those that know who he is. Obviously, you know... I don't think Sam Rockwell's ever been bad in a movie, so... Yeah. You know, obviously he's really good in this. Everybody's really... Ray Liotta's character... despite the way he's set up, is actually, like, a really gentle character and, like, a really nice guy. And, like, supposedly what he's like in real life, but unlike anything you see him do on the screen. So, everybody's good in it. So I'd recommend it. But, like I said, that last 20 minutes is just... It almost shit the bed, but didn't quite. You know, it didn't hurt it that bad. So, yeah. It's the movie I'd recommend most of these four.
Interesting.
So, that's really... I mean, if you can find... I think they're all on... I think this and The Art of Steel are on demand now. And that's how you can find the limited releases. So...
Speaking of another release...
Yeah, we're gonna have 5 movies next week. We have the theatrical movies, plus we're going to have a limited release black comedy called Cheap Thrills and Veronica Mars. I'll go ahead and say this now. I'll probably say it in the other video too, but if you're fans of Veronica Mars and you find my review video that I have yet to shoot, I've never seen an episode of Veronica Mars, but I will read the Wikipedia synopsis of the entire show sometime this week, and then I will watch the movie. I promise. I was going to watch the show in its entirety before the movie came out, but I forgot it was coming out this soon, so
we're out of time.
It just kind of snuck up on me.
Yeah.
But I will find out as much as I possibly can about the show, so I'm not like fully oblivious to everything. It'll be a new perspective. I'll be like the one review you get of somebody who's never seen an episode of the show, and you'll see how it looks from that perspective.
There you go. That's a way to look at it.
Okay.
And plus, we're going to be talking about, like I said, the release movies of Muppets Most Wanted, and Divergent, and...
God's Not Dead.
Yeah, you can say it, not me. So, before we go, would you recommend Need for Speed?
I get a little bit. If you're into that kind of thing, go right ahead. If you're not, you'll probably want to see something else out.
I don't really think you would recommend Single Moms Club. I think there is an audience out there for it that will go see it, and we saw it with those people. So, yeah, we don't even mention that. Would you recommend Art of the Steel?
If you're a fan of both Guy Ritchie and his rip-offs, probably. It's very safe and it's very minor, but it's entertaining while it lasts. So, why not?
And Better Living Through Chemistry is a gleaming recommendation.
Yeah.
So, all right. Any parting words?
That's it.